It's a great day, guys. Welcome. Thank you for listening to the May You Be Well podcast. You are here with Jake Bobby Doyle and Rob Minert. Today's episode is Fuel the Machine, Why You Are Tired and Hungry. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to go and discuss the problem. The problem is going to be based around the standard American diet. Jake, what do you call the standard American diet?
I like to call it the sad diet. It's a very sad diet. And, that is the primary problem. I mean, if you go into a grocery store, in the middle of that grocery store, which is the majority of the grocery store, I would say 80% probably, in the middle of that grocery store are your refined and processed foods. And the thing is, Rob, these refined and processed foods are just not designed to work with our bodies. I like to call it an incompatibility issue, for sure.
Our bodies haven't changed, Jake, since the dawn of time when it comes to what fuels us. And what you're trying to say is we're now putting almost poison into our body.
Yeah, for sure. It's unrecognizable to our systems. And let's just describe, what is happening when we eat these refined and processed foods. What's happening in us? So we eat these foods and it raises our blood sugar levels to insane amounts. And, your body is designed to have some sugar. It's designed to process that. Sugar is one of the two fuels that our body uses. You have sugar and you have fat. The problem is these refined and processed foods are raising our sugars too much. They're raising it to these unsustainable amounts. And it's putting a lot of stress on our bodies, Rob. There's a lot of stress going on. There's inflammation. And, we're gaining weight, we're getting sick, and then we're tired. We're putting all this intake in, this fuel, yet we're still tired and we're hungry.
Right. And that all makes sense. I mean, it's sort of like, imagine yourself being any type of machine, like a car. And you go and, you need some more energy. Well, what energy source is a car? It's going to be gasoline. You don't go ahead and put sugar in your fuel tank of your car and hope it to run. And I'm not saying that the body only runs on gasoline, which we know it doesn't, but it does have a certain select amount of fuels that it works best on. And, that really takes us into what's real food versus what's fake food. And I think we can define some of the fake foods.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at, the late 1870s, we had a massive boom with the Industrial Revolution. It was a massive boom. And I'll just take one example, bread, for instance. We made bread for many, many years, way before the industrial boom. But the thing is, the bread back then was healthier because it had all the parts of the wheat plant. And now, through the Industrial Revolution, we're able to take that endosperm, okay, disregard the rest, and then break it down into this fine little powder called flour. And that's that white. It hits your blood sugar very hard, and you have this massive insulin spike. And what's happening, so this is why you're tired. What's happening is your blood sugar is raising so high. Now, if you had the rest of the plant in there, that's a complex carbohydrate. So your blood sugar is not going to raise as high. The fiber is going to counteract that blood sugar spike, and it's going to raise to a sustainable level. But the problem is we're raising it too high. The insulin comes, it takes the sugar out of the blood because it's toxic for your blood. So the insulin hormone has to take the sugar out of your blood and put it in the cells for energy. Well, sometimes it can take too much out of your blood. So then you have this blood sugar dip. You have a spike, and then you eat too much, it raises too high, and then you have an extreme dip. And then that's when you're like, oh, well, I need to get some more processed stuff in my system to raise that sugar level back up. And that's not even talking about the addiction from these foods. These foods are they're highly addictive, Rob, very, very addictive. When we eat them, remember, we're refining them. So when we eat them, it's not natural, and we're getting these serotonin spikes. So it's the happy chemical in your brain. We're very, very addicted to it. And another side effect when you have too much serotonin in your system is it can make you tired too. Now, serotonin is a good thing, but through this sad standard American diet, It's just too stimulating and too extreme for our machines, our body.
It's funny you bring that up, and I guess it wouldn't be funny. It's a reality. We ingest these foods that cause us to gain an addiction, and it's almost subconscious. And what happens is we'll go ahead and, for example, we'll have a candy bar. And that candy bar can consist of 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrates, and that's going to be your added sugars. A lot of that is your added sugars. And those sugars, your body, like you said, is used to taking on some of those sugars, but we're doing it at such a high concentrated amount that our body now is getting a jolt of energy. And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody loves that jolt of energy. It's the crash.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we come down and our body's already processing those fast acting sugars. And now we have lower than our original amount of energy because our body got used to that high energy state. So, you know, you're down at the bottom and you start craving that energy again. Well, generally that's going to be in the process of, you know, refilling the coffers of fake foods. You know, that could be the candy bar, that could be any type of high concentrated sugar item.
Yeah, and you mentioned fake food. I mean, sugar and, you know, refining the foods is already bad enough. But, you know, in the late 1950s, we created this sugar substitute called high fructose corn syrup.
HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. I'm so glad you brought that up, Jake. Look at a can of cola, pop, mind you. You have the main ingredient being water. Great. What's the second main ingredient? It's high fructose corn syrup. Jake, when in the last 13,000 years was this item put into the human body, and has it ever been recognized truly by the human digestive system?
You know, it's only been in the late 1950s, and we've been on this planet way longer than that. Way longer. It's almost like going to the gas station and putting diesel into a gasoline engine. It's just, we don't have enough data yet with high fructose corn syrup. And also all the other, you know, you got the Splenda, you got the aspartame, the fake sugar. I mean, I think that could even be worse.
Yeah, and it is all about the data. We're not 100% sure long-term effects. There are some case studies out that are very proving, but let's just go off of what we do know. We know what real foods are. We know what the new foods that we consider fake are, and we're still learning. And it's not that you have to take it all from your diet. It's that you have to be in moderation. So like another thing that we kind of overlook is the oils that we intake. The difference between like a cold pressed coconut oil versus a high refined vegetable oil. Jake, would you like to give me a little bit more background on like the vegetable oil?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it goes back to the Industrial Revolution yet again. We learned how to, we have to use like chemical solvents and machinery to even make vegetable oil. Now you might hear vegetable oil. It's like vegetable. Yeah, it's a good oil. It must be healthy for me. But the process is to even extract that little bit of oil in there. We need heavy duty machinery, and a lot of the time solvents are used. Whereas coconut oil, you know, it's cold pressed. It's very simple. The olive oil is very good. So talking about oils, yeah, I would say the best thing you can do is stick to the oils that don't require the processing, because those are the oils that are going to work with your body. You know, I can believe it's not butter, Rob. I really can believe that.
It really goes back to why it's sad. It's not just that it's named the standard American diet. It is sad because we're trying to cut costs, and in doing so, we're now damaging our bodies and creating addictions. We're creating addictions to the foods that spike our energy. So we're now getting addicted to the energy. So it's not just the primary function, of filling our bellies and being hungry. It's the secondary addiction to the energy, the spikes of energy that it gives us. I think maybe we should discuss why the food now gets us more tired or more hungry once we start taking that into our system.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I just want to say one more thing. You mentioned the addiction and you mentioned the profit. You know, if I'm a CEO at, you know, the head of a refined, you know, any snack company or any food company that has and makes the standard American diet food, there's a hell of a lot of profit there with those refined foods. I mean, that we're talking probably in the thousands of percents of profit margin. And that is just, that's a huge thing. And I don't know if they know or if they're aware, but it's creating addiction, and we're buying more of the food and we keep funding, you know, the corporate structure that, you know, implements this whole diet.
Well, it's like I said, even in, you know, the anytime you have a depression era or where money's hard to come to the lower middle class regions of society here in America, the Dollar Generals, the Dollar Tree, the Five Belows, the places where you can get your cheap food fast. It's already pre-made, it's packaged, it's going to last a long time. That's the food you got to worry about. And it also sells cheaper because the margin's already so large, like you said. They're going to make money at the end of the day, and you're going to get addicted. It's going to be a repeat sale.
It's an endless feedback loop.
Yes,
And,
it is.
you know, I really just want to commend you. For the listeners that don't know, I mean, you opened up a cafe here near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you only offer food with real ingredients. So you don't offer high fructose corn syrup. You don't offer, you know, these bad vegetable oils that essentially have these trans fats. You don't offer any of that. And, you know, it's totally going against the curve of the norm of what everybody else is doing. And I really have to commend you for taking that leap and going towards, you know, the health. And there's a way to make a business work where you don't have to sell fake food, where you don't have to, you know, contribute to this. You're doing a good cause. And I really commend you for that.
Thank you very much. And, you know, I can give you a little story behind that. And really, it boils down to I live by you vote with your dollar. I mean, there's so many things you can vote with. You can vote with your time, you can vote with your feet, and you can vote with your dollar. Well, everything that I sell, I have to either produce one way or another by purchasing it to bring it in store, or I prepare it. With that said, is I'm still voting with a dollar. And what I would eat is something that's real. I myself have lost 75 pounds in the past. You know, that was a decade ago. But at the same point, a diet is a forever thing. And that's something that we're going to get to. But with my story is when I started this business, I wanted to give that piece that I learned to every patron that comes in. And that is when you come in and you vote with your dollar, I can tell you that you're going to get a product that your body's going to know how to process. It's going to know how to digest and produce effective energy.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, you know, I love the cafe. I love everything you sell. It's real food. And you know what? It makes me feel good. You know, my blood sugar level is not crazy high because you guys are creating real food, and that's a great thing.
No, it starts with what your body knows how to process. All right. We all need certain things to survive. And, you know, you go to the top, you need to breathe, right? So you need air. Next one, you need some water. You can only survive so long without water. And then sleep, and then food. Well, food is our main fast source of energy. You can go up to about 2 weeks without eating. You're going to have detrimental effects in that process. But someone that has been addicted to refined foods is going to have symptoms within probably 1 to 3 days without eating. And it's not going to even be so much the hunger. It's going to be the addictive properties that those refined and processed foods bring. It's going to be the sugar absence, or it's going to be, the high simple carbohydrate that you're pulling out of the system abruptly. Your body does get used to trying to process, whether it be real or unreal food, it's still trying to process it.
And yeah, that's another thing is when you're coming off of this food, you might notice withdrawal symptoms like headaches and extreme fatigue. If you decide to come off the food, just know, it will go away.
It
It's a
takes
drug.
time.
And there's been a study that's recently been done where, sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And I highly believe that. I mean, if you look at the processes, everything's a white powder. We're breaking it down. And if you take flour or sugar, I mean, it's highly absorptive, and it really makes that blood sugar level rise.
Right. Our bodies, when it comes to sugar, say it's fructose, which is coming from a fruit, it's sugar from fruit. Our bodies have had thousands of years primed in digesting that and utilizing that energy. It's breaking it down. If you have a piece of paper and you catch it on fire, you have a transition of energy. You're taking a flame, a fuel source, and you're now creating heat, light, and residual waste. Well, it's the same thing your body's doing with the fuel you're putting in. Your input minus the energy equals your output. And it's a whole system. It's an in and out process. If you're now going to go ahead and try to, when's the last time you tried to, I don't know, catch a baseball on fire or something of non-fuel orientation, something that you wouldn't consider that you would want to catch on fire? Like, go ahead, you're real cold in the winter and you want to catch your laptop on fire. You're not going to do it. Yeah, it has $1,000 to it, but it's not worth burning. There's certain things that your body is already primed to do. And, when it comes to your nuts, your berries, your meats, your natural selection of foods that are around you, that is what we would want to consider as a real food. And that's going to be one of our main solutions, is eating real food.
Yeah, real whole food. And like I said, you were talking about fruit. Fruit has sugar in it. But here's the thing. It's a whole food. So when I say about whole is when you eat, say that apple, it has fiber, and that fiber actually counteracts the sugar in the apple. It's almost like an antidote. So when you eat the apple, your blood sugar doesn't rise as much and you don't have that crash. Now, maybe if you ate 20 apples, but we're not going to do that because guess what? The fiber also fills us up. Everything in that apple is designed to work with our body. It's when we start taking the sugar and not having any of the other stuff is what makes it so bad. I mean, I have a friend that lives in Australia, and she came over, and she was so surprised when she tried our bread here. It was so sweet to her. I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, it's just bread." And she had that Australian accent. It was awesome. But she was like, this is very sweet to me. And looking at the back, looking at the ingredients, I mean, there's high fructose corn syrup in the bread.
Right. It's a good way to get someone that next step, either to be addicted or to now looking for a sweeter version of what was normal or natural. So, like you said, it could be the corporation looking at a way to get their product out on a normal basis or on an addictive basis. That's kind of not the point. The real point would be is, what is your body used to taking in? What should it be taking in? And what are you taking in? And you mentioned about 20 apples. I don't know the last time someone ate 20 apples around me.
Nope.
But you're probably not going to want to. Now try and limit that with other real foods. How many pounds of chicken do you want to eat? Or how many salads do you want to eat? Now compare that to how many cookies you want to eat.
Right.
The number generally gets higher when it comes to a fake food because there's ancillary properties to that food that your body take in. It's the emotional production, it's the energy production, where truly when you're eating a real or whole food, it's just to fuel the body, to fuel the machine.
Yeah.
And if you look at back of the ingredients and you see the nutritional facts, it tells you how much a serving size is. So if you look at the back of M&Ms or Skittles, there's a serving size. Most people look at a king size bar as a one serving, or they look at a bag of chips as a one serving. But no, it's not really that way. you should really be aware of what you're putting in your body. And that goes with part of the solution.
Yeah, and the solution is to eat whole food.
Right.
When you're eating whole food, you have receptors, you have stretch receptors in your stomach. So that fiber and that food's going to go in there. That's just one signal that's going to tell your brain, hey, stop eating. When you eat that cookie or that candy bar, it's essentially through the processing, there's no signal to the brain to really stop eating. Actually, you're just signaling to keep eating through the addiction and the serotonin and all the happy chemicals like the dopamine spikes. With real food, you have the stretch receptors in your stomach that tell. You have certain hormones like leptin that tell the brain, hey, stop eating. You have enough energy, man. You're done, and that's it. Now, when you're eating the cookies or the processed stuff, you're essentially bypassing those signals, and it's not working with your body. Your body is unable to communicate with you. You're unable to communicate with yourself, and you just keep eating and eating and eating.
What's the feedback loop? Yeah, I think you mentioned that before. It's
endless.
It's the input and the output, and the output being depression or low amounts of energy or a bellyache. And what you're going to redo then to start that feedback loop again is you're going to eat something that's been processed or has high fructose corn syrup in it. And once again, it just snowball effect. It only gets harder and harder and harder.
And another thing I want to talk about is we have two fuel sources. We're a hybrid machine. We run off of sugar and we run off of fat. The problem with the SAD diet is that we're basically inputting the sugar to these very high stimulating levels. So our bodies don't really know how to burn fat. They're not essential. And when I mean fat, it's the fat that you carry on you. So you constantly eat this highly stimulating, sugary foods, refined, processed carbohydrates. Your body's only going to want to burn processed, high refined carbohydrates. When you stop eating, instead of accessing your body's stores of energy, which you carry in the form of body fat on your body, your body's like, well, hey, I'll just, in my environment, I can easily get another bag of potato chips, and then that will fuel the machine. And then I'll preserve the body fat on my body for when actual times of starvation may occur. And we got to remember, our bodies are still primal. I mean, we're animals, you know what I mean? And it's just very highly stimulating. And what we need to do is, if part of the solution, if we eat whole food, we're going to bring those blood sugar levels down. We're going to bring our insulin levels down. And we're going to teach our bodies are going to start running better. The operating system is going to run better. And yeah, you might have a piece of fruit and it's going to raise your sugar levels a little bit. But then when your sugar levels come back down, they're not going to spike down and you're not going to have that crash. They're going to stay at a very nice pace. And then when your body wants more energy, instead of signaling to you to eat another bag of potato chips or a king-size candy bar, what it's going to do is it's going to access that stored body energy that you have on your body. We're a hybrid machine, but the standard American is not a hybrid machine. We're designed to be a hybrid machine, but we're not. And we need to teach our bodies how to utilize both fuel sources. I mean, you look at sugar, it's quick energy. You know what I mean? It's very, very quick energy, and it's essential. I mean, you eat a piece of fruit, it's quick energy. You're going to be able to run. You're going to have the energy. I mean, you see marathon runners, they'll refuel as they're running. You know what I mean? It's that quick bit of sugar that they're going to burn. But we just don't know how to burn the body fat because of the signaling process and the disruption of our operating system. We need to do what's going to work with our operating system. And our operating system burns two fuel sources: fat, which is a very stable and level energy. It's very stable. It's a good energy source, I think. And if you eat the whole food, you're going to access the stored body energy on your body instead of, going and getting, going to McDonald's and getting the supersized meals. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I always said that in this world, we are the greatest capacitors that walk and exist. And what do I mean by that? Like I said, you can survive multiple weeks without eating. Now, how is that possible unless you have batteries or sources of energy on you? And that would be the fat storages that were already on your body. And that could be in different layers. Everybody has a different content of fat, but your body will burn that. It will. And the only way to do that is to stop the cycle of the fast acting sugars and carbohydrates. Because what we're doing is when we entrain that new fuel source of either the high fructose corn syrup or the high density sugars, we're turning off, literally, we're turning off the process of burning the fat that's already there, ready to be burned. You know, you're going from one fuel source to the other because your body has to do something with that. You now put it into your digestive tract where your fats are already stored. They're on a different category of how they're now reintroduced into the body as an energy source. So what we're actually doing is we're intentionally harming ourselves, but we don't know because knowledge is power. And what you don't know, you don't know. And the hardest thing, I think, when it comes to losing weight is putting yourself in an environment. And that could be whether that is a social environment or the physical environment that you exist in to be healthy. You know, with the standard American diet, we're constantly surrounded with flyers that say, you know, eat this or try this. And then you have the constant social envelopment of what's normal in the area of fast food or alcoholic beverages or treats. And then you have the holidays. You know, there's so many layers already working against you from the moment you wake up to the moment you go back to bed, all the decisions that are now incurred. And you have to now try and control that so you don't turn off that switch at all times. And you're trying to be the person, the best version of you each day, 1% better than yesterday, trying to be healthier. You know, there's so many variables in line here when it comes to just eating real whole foods.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a culture thing. And we're not saying never have some, you know, cookies or never, you know, have a good time. I like to keep it around 80-20, 80% clean, 20% fun. I mean, this past holiday season, I had a couple Christmas cookies. It was just a couple at work, and they were great cookies. They're probably the best cookies I ever had. I don't know if it was because I didn't have them for so long, and it was good. And I enjoyed it. And that's the thing. When you go into something like that, before you eat that food, you got to have intention. You got to.
So proud of you.
Right?
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to eat these 2 cookies. You know, one was a brownie, the other had M&Ms in it. And that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to eat these 2 damn cookies. Tomorrow, you know, when I get home from work, I'm not going to say I'm not going to, you know, pull out some more cookies and eat them all night. The next day, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to have these 2 cookies right now. And that is it.
You have your structure, right? Once you start your new diet, what all a diet is you're defining what your body needs to perform the functions daily as required. Now, so for example, if you're a marathon runner, you're probably going to need high amounts of carbohydrates before you run a marathon. And then afterwards, you need low sustaining energies because generally a marathon runner is already as light as they can be on their feet. Okay. With that said, I have a defined diet. Now, with the 80-20 rule that you've defined, is that gives me moderation. Occasionally, I'm going to toss some things into my diet that don't need to be there, but I want them personally. There's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to define moderation. Now, mind you, you're not trying to go against the grain and then constantly force the issue where you're either depressed because you're overdoing moderation or underdoing. That doesn't truly hit the mark on moderation. There's an ingredient label on the back, you know, the nutritional facts. It'll tell you what a serving size is. If you're going to go ahead and have a cheat day, that's fine. But why don't you start with sizing it? You know, once you said it's an intention. What is the intention here? Well, my intention is to remember this moment at work. It is a celebration. I'm going to now do the 20% here. I'm going to have this cookie that has M&Ms in it. And we know what that is. It's high amounts of sugar, but you enjoyed it, Jake. You remembered it. It is now a memorable event because it wasn't just about eating the cookie, stuffing your face, and getting high on the energy. It was about your intention, right? So positive environment. Jake, you've defined this positive environment, but it's even more than that. It's your mindset. It's what you go into. It's the way you look at it. Before you had a poopy day, right? you had a not so good day. So you're just going to eat a tub of ice cream. So what was your intention behind it? Well, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to make it worse.
That's the wrong mindset.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And damn, those cookies were so good.
They were so good. You remember all of them. How many bites? Did you chew 20 times? I tried to chew 20 times.
Dude, I couldn't even chew 20 times. It was like, no, it was like 5 times because like
your body was just swallow more.
I'm not going to go into the details of, this cookie, but I couldn't get 20 chews in. It was impossible because the saliva glands and all that. I'm not going to go into detail, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do. And it's impressive because they are drugs.
Yeah.
And they are more addictive than your typical, off the street or illegal drugs, when you should really be afraid of what you can buy at the gas station, what you can get at the dollar store, what you can get in the middle of the aisles of the grocery store, where you're not going to truly get a nutritional or energy benefit for your body.
Yeah, there's definitely an addiction there. And you know what, talking about that, no, you don't have to do 80-20. You can do whatever works for you. You can do 75-25 or 90-10, whatever you want to do. I know, Rob, I know some people that can't even cheat at all. It's like, comparing it to alcoholism, there's some people that are so addicted to this food that they can't cheat, or it's almost like a relapse. So you gotta do what works for you, for sure.
Right. And it will take some time.
Yeah.
Whether it be journaling, physically or mentally, reviewing the last week, having a partner in this, a dietitian. There's many avenues, but you have to start. You have to do that 1% today and every day following. It's not huge when you look at it in a 1% increment. And that's why we've designed the 1% takeaway. And it's our goal of defining what you can do each day that's just a little bit, but will make huge results over time. To build a habit, there's no true data that gives the exact number because it's individually based. It's case by case. But if you were to do 1% each day, in 100 days, you're technically at 100%. Think about that. That's a 180 change. That is a complete alteration of your view, your position. If you can give it 30 days, you will see results. It may not be everything you expected or hoped for, but there will be substantial change. So if we could just find that one thing, which is maybe removing pop or only limiting yourself to eating cookies at one time during the day, or taking in junk food only on weekends. You have to be able to define it and set yourself up for success.
Yeah. And I would say the 1% takeaway here is to do anything that you just mentioned and incorporate, whole foods into your diet. Because when you incorporate those whole foods, your body is going to be able to effectively communicate with you. I mean, the operating system is going to be running at maximum potential. And when you're going to be able to burn body fat too. I mean, just journal and just, record how you're feeling. That could be a 1% takeaway right there, is just, how do I feel today? And what did I eat? And maybe there's a correlation there. And maybe I'll cut the pop out, cut the high fructose corn syrup out. And that's a huge thing. I think cutting pop would be a huge thing. And for the listeners that are in the rest of the U.S. besides Pittsburgh, we're talking about soda.
Carbonated, sugary beverages. I'm going to go ahead and just read off here what we have as our 1% takeaway, Jake. And I think what that can do is give our listeners the ability to hear it, feel it, and maybe resonate with it. So it's eat real, whole food that will sustain your body's needs. Listen to your body and eat because it's good for you not just because you want it.
That is perfect.
Well, Jake, you and I have now done the May You Be Well podcast. First episode, Fuel the Machine. We are grateful for this opportunity. May you be well.
May you be well.